Here's how child support works in Australia. Child support depends on how much income each parent earns, as well as the number of children and their ages. The government uses each parent's last recorded taxable income. For example, this could be your salary last financial year, plus some bank interest and a tax deduction or two. Anything a parent earns above about $25,000 a year, which is known as the self-support amount, counts as assessable income. Child support combines the incomes of the two parents together to work out the total cost of children. For example, the cost of 2 kids might be $20,000 per year. Child support uses cost tables that show what a couple on different combined income levels would likely spend on children. Cost of children increases rapidly with combined income and also increases with the number of children. There's a cost loading for teenagers as well. Economists worked out the cost tables by examining how having children affects the spending habits of families. Child support is not about intact families, and yet they're central to the calculations. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Now, in theory, the parents create a pool of funds to cover the costs of children. You contribute based on your income. For example, if you have 75% of combined income, you pay 75% towards the cost of children. The fund is distributed back to the parents to spend on the children. For example, if you have the children a quarter of the time, you'll receive back roughly a quarter of the pool of funds. You turn out to be a payer if you contribute more towards the pool of funds than you get back for the costs of providing care. Alternatively, you're a receiver and don't actually have to hand over any money if your percentage of care time is greater than your share of combined income. To summarise how child support works, separated parents join in to share their income for the benefit of their children. They put their financial contributions together into a fund based on their earnings, thus creating a single combined budget. Then each parent receives their share of the budget to cover the costs of caring for the children. Whoever has the children more receives the larger share. Parents then spend on the children when they have them. In the design of the scheme, parents were assumed to spend the same as each other per day of care provided. Total spending on the children is, in theory, the same as what would have happened if everyone were together as a family in a single household. The current approach came out of a 2005 Ministerial Task Force report produced by a law professor. The report asserted that the continuity of expenditure principle, that is, trying to force the same spending pattern as an intact family, was, quote, the best starting point for calculating an appropriate level of child support, end quote. However, the report offered no other starting point. That meant Australia implemented the current scheme without seriously considering any other ways of doing it. Not considering any alternative methods is problematic, especially because the continuity of expenditure principle was such an odd place to start. As a PhD economist, I say it's bloody stupid. And you don't need to have studied economics at university to work this out. The trouble with the current model is that it's naive and unrealistic. Why on earth are child support trying to simulate an intact family? We're dealing with parents who don't live together and children who live across 2 households or only live with one parent. The entire point of child support is to deal with parents and children who live apart in some fashion. As much as we might wish in our heart of hearts that parents will be together forever, the model of the intact family is irrelevant. You've got to accept that. If a building firm was designing a facility for people in wheelchairs, would they start by assuming everyone can walk, and so they'd put in stairs all over the place? Would a teacher start an English as a second language course by assuming everyone had fluent English, and then hand out a thick course guide written purely in English? The child support scheme should have been designed with only separated parents in mind, not parents who are together. Here's how the current system plays out in reality. Suppose we have divorced parents Steve and Sophie who earn about the average for men and women respectively. So we'll say Steve earns $75,000 a year and Sophie earns $50,000. That means their combined income is $125,000. And we'll assume Sophie has their 2 kids 5 nights per week, with Steve looking after them the other 2 nights. Using the calculator at childsupportaustralia.com, Steve has to pay Sophie $8,257 in child support annually. Do you think Steve, whenever he has his children, will spend on them like a couple with a combined income of $125,000, i.e. about $53.30 per day just on the kids? Probably not. He might live alone and rely just on his $75,000 income. Even if he has a new partner, she may not be interested in supporting his children, and he might not have much left after tax, rental mortgage costs, single living costs, and paying child support. What about Sophie? She only makes $50,000 a year. Will she spend like a married couple with a combined income of $125,000? Probably not. Even though she receives child support, she may be wise to spend less on the kids than a married couple. Neither Steve nor Sophie spend nearly as much as what would be assumed. They can't afford to. For the kids, they're not as financially well off as if they permanently lived with both their biological parents. Steve may feel just a little aggrieved with the situation. Although he can moderate his own spending, he's paying child support at an unrealistically high rate. Effectively, he's paying all of the true costs of the children. He pays his own way when he has the children and covers 100% of Sophie's expenses through support payments. Sophie, on the other hand, bears no financial costs from having children, and she gets to control most of the spending. The drawback for Sophie is that she has to balance work with significant care responsibilities. She could ask Steve to provide more care, but that would make her worse off financially as she'd lose payments. For some reason, not many recipients seem to do that sort of thing. Sophie could choose to go the other way and shift to part-time work and become sole carer for the children. By doing so, she loses half her income, but she gets more child support and other benefits. Child support alone goes up to $13,221 per year, and maybe a partner will help her in the future. Partner earnings don't affect support payments. If she does this, the children are made poorer. They now live always with their mother, who can't provide for them very well on a part-time income. As for Steve, he's fully funding the raising of his children without him, and also effectively paying spousal maintenance on top. And if he succeeds in getting a higher paying job sometime in the future, payments will just go up. You have to ask whether the current scheme is achieving its legislated objective, which is to, quote, ensure children receive a proper level of financial support from their parents, end quote. What is proper about distorted payments where some parents pay far too much? And what is proper about distorted payments that encourage parents to earn less than what they could and for low-income parents to dominate care? The current scheme is hurting kids. No surprise really when you consider it was created with intact families in mind. We should have a new system that's designed for the real users, the parents and children of separated families.